I've built an 80% keyboard, a 60% keyboard, but today we go even smaller and build a 50% keyboard. The keyboard kit that we're going to be working with today is the Drop Preonic, and Drop was kind enough to send us out all the parts for this build, including the switches and keycaps. Now, the Drop Preonic retails for a price of $140, but it is currently on sale for $119, so if you're curious about checking out this keyboard, I'll leave links down below in the description. Now, it comes in a variety of different colors to pick and choose from, and I decided to go with the Frosted Acrylic because I felt like this would show off the RGB the best. The Drop Preonic comes as a kit that you have to assemble yourself, and it's very straightforward and simple. Inside the box, you'll receive the case itself, a USB-A to USB-C cable, the stabilizers, 5 screws, 5 brass spacers, 5 nuts, and 4 rubber bumpers that go on the underside of the keyboard to keep it from sliding around, a socket wrench, the PCB, which is hot swappable, and last but not least, the plate. The switches I decided to go with for this build are Aqua Kings. I'm a huge fan of linear switches, and in my main keyboard, I've been using Ink Blacks for the past year, and I absolutely love linear switches, and with all the hype around Aqua Kings, I had to pick them up. As for the keycaps, they're called Acute, they're OEM profile, they're PBT, and we'll talk about them more later in the video. With all the parts out of the way, it's time to build the Drop Preonic. This whole process was streamed live on my Twitch channel where I built the Drop Preonic from start to finish. I've built many keyboards in the past. I love interacting with chat and showing the complete build guide of whatever keyboard that I'm building. If you'd like to check out my Twitch channel, I'll leave a link to that down below in the description. Putting this keyboard together was very simple, and one of the main things that really cut down on time was that I didn't have to lube all the switches. The Aqua Kings came pre-lubed. There are 2 different ways to assemble this keyboard. The first method is called the loose plate, and the second is called the extra secure. It really doesn't matter which one you pick, but I decided to pick the extra secure because this is what I thought would be best. As for the spacebar, you have 3 different choices to pick and choose from. The first method is by using both of these stabilizers for the spacebar. The second is by using only one stabilizer, and the last method is by simply using just switches. I tried out all 3 of the different ways that you can actually use a spacebar on the Drop Preonic, and for my personal testing, I found that using one stabilizer was most comfortable for me. But if you wanted to use 2 and have either one of your thumbs on a different keycap for the spacebar, use both of the stabilizers. But for me, I was used to having the spacebar on one keycap and typing with both of my thumbs on it, so I decided to use one stabilizer. Staying on the same topic as stabilizers, the stabilizers came pre-clipped, and they also came with a little bit of factory lube, which I didn't like. It was very inconsistent, and I didn't like the sound of it, so I pulled the stabilizers off, washed all of the factory lube off, and re-lubed it, including the wire, with some Krytox 205 grade 0, and this made the sound of the stabilizers so much better. Once I completely finished putting the case together, which only took around 20 minutes, it was time to pop in all the switches. This was by far the most difficult part about the keyboard, which you would expect to be one of the easiest parts. Now, popping in the switches wasn't as simple as it had seemed. Since everything was closer together and it was just a smaller form factor, I felt like it was very tight popping in the switches, which led me to bend a lot of pin. I spent the majority of my time rebending pins and retesting all the switches to make sure all the switches worked inside of the Drop Preonic. So the overall experience of just popping in switches was not enjoyable. Something I also didn't like about this keyboard is when you went to pull out the switches, occasionally I would completely pull off the whole top housing of the switch because the switch was so tightly in the Drop Preonic. So you have to be careful and you have to wiggle it around before you actually pull the switch off. And another annoying part about this keyboard is if a switch was close to the edge of the keyboard, you had to use a specific switch puller to actually get in there because it was so small and you couldn't really fit a normal switch puller in there. So it definitely took a lot of time just simply pulling out the switches, which is something I wasn't a fan of. The keycaps themselves are a little bit weird with all the different designs and shapes, and all I had to do was go to Drop's website, find a picture of the Preonic, and just copy the layout onto my Preonic. But when it came to actually typing on this keyboard, it was very hard to actually identify what keycap was what, because sometimes I could tell, oh, that's a shift, but other times I couldn't tell if it was like a control or a backspace because some of the symbols would throw me off. So it definitely took me a little bit of getting used to when actually typing on this keyboard. With the keyboard kit put together, all the switches popped in and the keycaps on, all you have to do is plug it in. You'll hear a little noise that sounds something like this. You know you're good to go. Here's a quick sound test. The board itself doesn't sound bad. The Aqua Kings sound amazing. The prelude was actually pretty decent. There was a few times where I found some inconsistencies in the actual switches themselves, which led me to take apart a few of them and relube them, which allowed for a more consistent feel over the whole keyboard. But for the majority of the part, the prelude on the Aqua Kings was pretty good. For stock stabilizers, if you do a little bit of work to them, they don't sound bad, but they do sound a little pingy, and the board itself has a little bit of a hollow sound to it, so I might foam mod it in the future to eliminate that factor. Now, I've been using the Drop Preonic for the past few days as my daily driver, so I could get a good idea of what this keyboard is like, so I could share with you guys my thoughts. First off, this keyboard is not meant for gaming. One of my viewers in my stream challenged me to play with the Drop Preonic for a few rounds of Valorant, and let me say, this was not an enjoyable experience. I was fat fingering keys left and right, considering how close together all the keys were, and trying to find everything was just so confusing. Since the keys are so close to each other, typing on this keyboard is very difficult. Whether you type with proper form or you peck and type with 2 fingers, you'll find it very difficult to type. Now, while this keyboard is designed so that your fingers don't have to move, it took me a long time to get used to. But if you're somebody who is typing all day, every day, you may want to try picking up the Preonic, because since the keys are so close to each other, I could definitely see somebody typing very, very fast on the Preonic once you get used to it. The Drop Preonic is definitely not going to be my daily driver. I really don't want to get used to a whole new keyboard layout, considering that I'm always switching from keyboard to keyboard, whether it be from my TKL to my 60%. If I used my 50% as my daily driver and switched to my TKL, it would just be super difficult, and the layout would just throw me off every single time. So I'm not going to be using this as my daily driver. The Drop Preonic is a neat little keyboard. I could definitely see somebody getting really fast at typing and very efficient just with the overall key placement and by reprogramming everything. I see a lot of potential in this keyboard, but for me especially, considering that I game, video edit, this just isn't a keyboard meant for me. I hope you guys went on to enjoy this video. I'm sorry if I sound a little stuffy. I just got over being sick for the past few days. So if you guys did go on to enjoy it, don't forget to leave a like on the video and subscribe down below with those post notifications on so you never miss a future upload. In addition, I do stream over on Twitch, so if you'd like to catch me there, maybe catch a future keyboard build, make sure you click the link down below in the description. If you have any questions about anything, feel free to leave them in the comments or join the Discord. I'd love to answer them and help you out. Thank you again for watching this video, and I will see you guys in the next one.
They're backing out.
Let me ace.
I'm still.
Oh! I'm so good at this game!